just that's like one of these craziest CVs you can ever see. Like, think about, all right, you look at his CV. All right, he's a product manager. Wait, he's working product manager at Groupon. Okay, that's cool. 16. Wait, what? He's building the first supersonic commercial jet since the Concorde, and looks like he's succeeding. What? What kind of CV is that? That's like one of the biggest flexes I've seen in a long time. It's like,
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of NF Twins. Today we're talking about a blast from the past. We're going to talk about, can supersonic planes bring it back? Specifically, is Boom bringing it back? Let's go.
all right, everybody. So, in end of January 2025, because this is the year right now, Boom was the first time that brought civilian aircraft breaking the sound barrier back to reality. So it's a dream after the Concorde now retired over 23 years ago, 24 years ago. So 2021 was the last flight. And yeah, the reason is now this podcast mark, this episode, I want to split it into why first the Concorde failed. And then I want to talk about, of course, Boom, why this actually might not fail. And yeah, in general about the market. Exactly. So I think this is one of the part why the Concorde fails. So in general, now, first of all, why did even the Concorde fail? Because in the end, it was faster. It traveled from New York to London within 3 hours compared to normal 6 hours. It was flying at Mach 2.04, something like this. Whereas normally, I think they fly at 0.7, something like this, or 0.8. So there's a huge difference. But one of the major problems is fuel consumption. Just the fuel consumption was so much higher compared to the normal airplanes. For example, I think it consumed up to 3x more fuel than the Boeing 747-8 that came out back in the day, as well as I think, the 100, sorry, the 100, the 747-100 came out, where as well as only was able to carry roughly 100 passengers, whereas the Boeing that came out at the same time could, well, carry 350, 360 roughly on average. So it's like 3 to 4x more passengers, while also consuming x less fuel. That makes it already like between x more efficient, because people didn't really care too much whether they spend a few more hours. So the Concorde just fizzled out. And
Well, it's in general, look, all maintenance costs. It's not only the fuel, it's all the costs that made this fail. So airlines weren't able to make this profitable. So they weren't able to charge users or customers enough money to outweigh the costs of the operating costs of running this bad boy. And that's one of the things. So, which is also one thing that's different now, right? We think the differences are now, first of all, I think there's more, well, the travel market is different nowadays. I mean, it's been growing ever since it this year or next year's. I think it's projected to reach the first time over $1 trillion in, that's insane. And then obviously they have massive appetite in the high end tier for luxury or especially time. There's a lot of people that value the time, obviously. People with a lot of money, and those people are willing to pay extra money for it. Which is also back in the day, also they did that for the Concorde. Like a lot of famous people were traveling with the Concorde, and I mean, the pilots were almost rock stars. They always send back. This is this one story I saw on YouTube. As this pilot who always sent a menu of, because everything in the Concorde was focused on luxury. So that means food, menus, whatever. And he would send a menu back to all the rock stars, everyone, the Beatles. They had all the signatures. And then one famous person, he sent the menu back with all the signatures on it already, and he thought it was a gift. And so he took it home with him instead of fucking leaving it, signing it. And so he was really upset about it.
what a shame.
I know. So it just shows you, like, it was different time of travel. Everything was luxury focused already. But I think back then it was not able, maybe because of the tickets would have been too horrendously expensive, or even people weren't rich enough yet. And
Also,
additionally, costs are too high, right? There's like two sides of the coin.
Mark mentioned that yes, costs were too high. Another reason is not only what kind of travel trips they could travel, right? Because then you can only travel supersonic over the sea. because over land is forbidden because of the sonic boom, and that
Well,
can
not in the
shatter
first few years,
glasses.
right? In the first few years, that was not accurate, Lucas. In the first few years, they would travel around across the land as well, but then eventually the US initiated a law that made it forbidden for civilian aircraft to fly supersonic over land, as well as then a lot of countries followed. And that's when the Concorde also
Which
took it.
also makes sense, right? Because you don't want to hear you don't want your glass to shatter potentially when the Concorde was breaking the sound barrier, which is like crazy. That must have been super, super cool.
I mean, talk about shattering, like the supersonic booms, for those people who don't know. If you fly or drive, like it depends on, obviously, the supersonic boom is depending on the altitude. So the lower you to the surface area you are, I think the lower, the faster or slower you have to go. I don't know. I don't remember. Lucas can check it out. And the higher you go, so anyways, so supersonic boom is basically there's a sound barrier, and if you fly or move in a fast enough, you're gonna hit the sound barrier. And then depending on the structure of the airplane or the vehicle that you use, it creates a sound of a boom. And the smaller the surface area you give for the sound barrier to hit, the lower will be the noise of the actual boom. So there's actually Lockheed Martin and NASA and all of them are researching on it. They created a prototype they're actually already testing, which has I think like a 15-meter long nose, which will decrease the surface area of the boom and basically creates all the waves that the shock waves and make them very, very, very small. So which then leads it to a much less noisy boom, which at the end of the day you can hear only thump noise, thump thump, versus a loud like noise like a gunshot, basically, or even louder from supersonic boom, which then would also I think they're gonna test it this year or next year in unknown, not well to be named public areas and areas around the US for people to see and then report actually. So it will be super interesting to see and find out if that is going to be something that will bring it back, or it wants to bring it back. He wants to bring supersonic travel. Well, that there's a lot. He wants to remove it. So we'll see about that. Lucas, do you want to
By
talk
the
about
way, if
economics?
you're on sea travel, sea level, the speed is 1,225 kilometers per hour
Mm-hmm.
to reach Mach 1, as well as temperature is 15 degrees, and at 10,000 feet, it's roughly 1,193. So it's like, I guess, 30 kilometers an hour or 32 slower to reach Mach 1 on the higher altitude.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a huge difference, to be honest. So that's not make a huge comparison. But I think it's very important to mention that they're working on this too. That basically the sound barrier will make less of a sound, because this is really important to enable more and more travel travel ways. I don't know how to actually say that, but so basically, for example, right now London, New York would be one of them, right? So you can travel that in 4 hours. Now I want to talk about Boom, right? Because Boom is now the new one who was like, I wanna bring it
New
back,
kid on the
supersonic.
block.
Exactly. So Boom, actually, the company went to YC in 2016, which is quite interesting because back then loom shots or moon shots weren't a really big thing, because most of the startups where they founded were in software development, etc. Then seeing somebody who wants to build a supersonic jet is just crazy, especially after seeing that the Concorde failed. But a few years later, or well, now it's almost 8 years or 9 years later, you can see that they can say, hey, our our consumption or our operating costs are 75% lower, or will be 75% lower than the ones of the Concorde. Meaning, and we were like, all right, let's do the math, right? Because in the end, we love numbers. So we're like, okay, what are the numbers actually will it be valid or worth to travel, right? So let's say the Concorde had 100 passengers, and the operating costs were roughly 30 to, I think, 32,000, something like this. Wait, let me double check. Yes, it's 32,000 operating costs for, here we go. Let me open it here. Here we go.
I mean, that's if you think about it, 32,000 doesn't sound that much. I mean,
But that's per
nowadays,
hour,
first
right?
class,
So
per hour.
operating up. So here we go. Wait, have it here. So the Concorde operating costs are roughly 32,000 dollars per hour. So on a flight from London to New York, which is 3.5 hours, you can estimate 112,000 per flight. If there's 100 passengers, that's 1,120 per ticket, excluding profits. Right? That's just a break-even point. That means, and
That
back
includes
in,
everything, maintenance as well, or no?
yes, that includes maintenance, crew per hour, fuel, but it doesn't. It's just the airplane itself. It does not include the people at the check-in, etc., which is like very, very important because like this is just the airplane itself. So it's not that many, right? It's not that many people. Also, you have to consider if you want to make a profit. Let's say you want to have 100, right? Let's say you charge a double, right? So let's say double the price, then you have 2,000. That's 200,000 that you can make on each on plane, or 100,000 that you can charge. So that's just 100,000 profit. Whereas if you do it with 360 people and you just charge 100, 150, 200, it's already, the economics are much, much better. But coming back now, the Overture is estimated to have 75% less costs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that means operating costs are not 32,000 per hour, but actually only 8,000, right, per hour on a 4-hour flight, because the Overture will fly between London and New York in 4 hours, not 3.5, because it's not going to fly at Mach 2, but in 1.7, which is like, I guess it's more efficient, fuel efficient. That's why they're not going to fly that fast, because it's not worth the extra fuel consumption. The flight is
Well,
actually on.
yeah, no, 100%. They also added different materials. They said
Exactly.
engines are better, etc.
But the available seats are only 80, so it's 20% less than before the Concorde
Huge
had.
difference.
It's a huge difference, right? And there, the break even would be 400 per ticket. If you do the rough estimate, when I say 75% less, well, operating costs than a Concorde, also it's a different money, right? You have to consider that back in the day, 2001 or 1970, when it first arrived, the Concorde, it's different level of money than nowadays. Also, we mentioned that earlier, that nowadays, especially with the internet, there are more multimillionaires than before, which also make it more interesting for private travel. So I can imagine that very rich people will be buying these planes because they will be traveling to Europe, etc., which makes it a huge difference if you can save 3 hours or 4 hours on the longer trips, which is like huge. Also, right now, they're in talks with, well, with Elon Musk, is aka also with Trump, because they want to get rid of that law that you can basically travel supersonic over the US, which makes also, I think, west to east coast reduce the travel time by 90 minutes, so from
Yeah.
6 hours to 4.5.
I mean, yeah, like we mentioned that before already, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things.
No, but I think it's important to it just all a lot of things, it looks like, are playing into their field so that they can have a successful launch. Because if, like, now, of course, the 747-100 that came out, no, 747-8 can now have more passengers, is more fuel efficient, etc. But I think it's like, if you go very, very premium, it can be a great market, because there are so much more travelers, as Mark mentioned. We have now, we'll be reaching next year, I think, over $1 trillion market just for the travel industry itself, which is crazy compared to earlier, when it's like was more niche. Not everybody, more the rich people, could travel. Now people have more money to spend, and then of course, man, who nowadays wouldn't want to at least try it once to travel supersonic, right? If you could spend then for a normal seat the same amount you would pay on a business or first class ticket in a normal airline, like, think about it. You would fly normally to New York, 6 hours, and you're like, all right, first class, that's like 10K, or what is first class?
Probably that. Well, it depends. Depends which distance, but yeah, between 4 and 10.
So let's say six grand. And if the normal class of Overture would be roughly that, I mean, I'm assuming it's up to the airlines anyways, but to break even, we calculate 400, which is just, I don't know how that's even possible. Let's say it's 1,000. You can still charge 3K. And with 80, I think you will get 80 people to fly that. Just, that's like one of these craziest CVs you can ever see. Like, think about, all right, You look at his CV. All right, he's a product manager. Wait, he's working product manager at Groupon. Okay, that's cool. 2016. Wait, what? He's building the first supersonic commercial jet since the Concorde, and looks like he's succeeding. What? What kind of CV is that? That's like one of the biggest flexes I've seen in a long time, which is like really, really cool. I really, really like that. It's just like it sees everything is possible as long as you have a dream, and as not only dream but also persistence. Yes, I mean it's now almost 10 years, right? He's been doing it now for 9 years, and this year, after 9 years, was the first time one of his prototypes hit Mark 1, right? Broke the supersonic barrier, which is crazy. Just like in the end, to really fulfill your dream, you have to work hard and consistent of so many years. It just like for me personally gave me hope. In general, it's like, okay, you might be failing for years, 5, 6 years, but then one thing and it can change everything, because like your skills are just like
Well,
stacking up.
exactly, and it's all one of the things. But I wouldn't say he was failing. It just takes longer, right? It's a hardware business.
No, exactly.
It's not
Well,
failing at
it
all.
is. I mean, in the end, you will have a lot of failures, right? Like engine
Yeah.
failures, like the
For
designs
sure, but
didn't
I'm
work.
saying that
Etc.
it sounds not the right way.
Yeah, it just you learn from a lot, right? You can have to build a lot of things and see till one of them works to then actually make it work. So I'm actually super excited, and I can't wait to see the first Overture flight itself, because right now it's just a prototype. But yeah, my prediction, I believe it will be very popular among the super rich, especially for private use for themselves.
I
So
agree. I'm excited to see how that will turn out.
all right, everybody. I think this is the podcast. We talked about Supersonic, bringing back big times. And of course, if you like the episode, please subscribe, give us a like. And of course, in the comments, let us know what you like, what you think. And of course, catch you next one. Peace.